Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we are diving into a concept that's so simple, yet can really transform the way you experience life and how you interact with everybody around you. We're talking about the idea of not taking anything personally.
It's amazing, isn't it? This idea really gets right to the core of our relationships and how we see ourselves in the world.
Hmm.
You brought some absolutely fascinating material for us to dig into today, and I think our mission here is to really break it down, understand why it resonates so deeply with people, and then pull out those practical insights that can truly make a difference in your life.
Absolutely. And one thing that really struck me was how this concept of not taking things personally is presented as this crucial second agreement in the material you share.
Right, a fundamental shift in perspective.
Exactly. So to kind of set the stage for everyone, let's talk about why we as humans even tend to take things personally in the first place. What are the consequences of doing that? And most importantly, what kind of freedom can we find when we learn to shift that perspective?
Okay, so let's start by really getting clear on what it even means to take something personally. I mean, we all do it, right? It's that almost instinctive reaction we have when somebody says or does something, and we immediately assume it's about us.
Yeah, it's like this instant, oh, they're talking about me. And your source gave this great, almost funny example about a stranger just walking by you on the street and saying something like, hey, you are so stupid. The point being that, according to the material, that statement actually says a lot more about the person who said it than it does about you.
Exactly. And if you think about it, when a comment like that really stings or you find yourself dwelling on it, it might be because somewhere deep down, you already kind of agree with that sentiment. Like there's a part of you that wonders, well, maybe they're right.
Which brings us to this whole idea of personal agreements. The source suggests that if we take something personally, it's often because we've already internally agreed with it on some level, even if it's buried somewhere in our subconscious.
And as soon as that internal agreement is triggered by something someone says or does, well, as the material puts it, the poison goes right through you.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So, what's fueling this whole process of taking things personally?
Well, your sources highlight something called personal importance. They describe it as this, I'm quoting directly here, maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. It's like we're hardwired to see the world primarily through the lens of how does this affect me?
It's like we're constantly inserting ourselves as the main character in everyone else's story.
Exactly. And the thing is, we often do this without even realizing it. It becomes this unconscious habit. But the material you shared offers this incredibly liberating counter perspective. It states that nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves.
I love that. So it's like everyone is operating within their own little world, their own unique mental landscape, shaped by their own experiences and beliefs.
Precisely. And their opinions, even those that seem aimed directly at you, are really just a reflection of their own internal agreements and how they see the world. Like the example you brought up from the source, hey, you look so fat. While that might feel like a direct attack, it's probably more about the speaker's own insecurities and body image issues than it is about you.
Okay, that makes so much sense. But let's get to the real danger here. When we do take things personally, what's the risk? Your source describes it as allowing others to send poison our way. Can you break that down for us?
What's fascinating here is this idea of emotional poison. When you absorb those negative opinions and insults, when you take them to heart, you're essentially letting someone else dump their negativity right into your own being.
And the source actually goes on to talk about what they call black magicians and predators, people who might exploit this tendency we have to take things personally.
It's like they know how to push our buttons, and if we're not careful, they can really feed on our tendency to internalize their negativity.
It's like they're throwing all their emotional garbage at us, and if we take it personally, we're basically saying, oh, thanks, I'll take that.
That's a great analogy, because the opposite of that, what the source calls immunity, choosing not to take things personally, is described as a true gift. It's about cultivating this inner strength that allows you to stay grounded even when surrounded by negativity.
That sounds so powerful. And the source also talks about how taking things personally creates this whole cycle of feeling offended and getting into conflicts. Can you explain how that plays out?
Sure, when you take something personally, that feeling of being offended often triggers a defensive reaction. Suddenly you feel this need to protect your beliefs, to argue your point, and that almost inevitably leads to some kind of conflict.
It's like we have this deeply ingrained need to be right. And in that process, we end up trying to prove the other person wrong.
Exactly. And that just keeps us stuck in this loop of personal interpretation, where everything feels like a judgment on us.
This reminds me of that analogy in your source about life being like your own personal movie. Can you tell us more about that?
I love that analogy. The idea is that you are the director, the producer, the star of your own life's movie, and everyone else is just playing a supporting role in your unique narrative.
So our interpretation of this movie, how we see things, how we react, it's all filtered through our own individual set of beliefs and experiences.
Precisely. And when others have a strong reaction to something you say or do, it's often more about their own internal movie, their own struggles, and their own fears than it is about you.
It's a good reminder that we're not always the center of everyone else's universe. So what happens when we can really grasp this idea of not taking things personally? What kind of freedom can that unlock for us?
Well, the material you shared suggests that a lot of those negative emotions we all experience, anger, jealousy, sadness, even envy, can really diminish or even disappear when we stop taking things so personally.
Wow, that sounds incredibly freeing. And the source also talks about developing a stronger sense of self-trust. How does that fit into all of this?
When you're not constantly seeking validation from others or letting their opinions throw you off balance, you naturally start to trust your own judgment more. You become less dependent on what other people think.
And it seems like that also gives us more freedom to be open and authentic in expressing ourselves, whether it's sharing love, asking for what we need, or setting boundaries.
Absolutely. When you're not afraid of being judged or rejected because you're not internalizing those reactions, you can express yourself more honestly and wholeheartedly.
It's about finding that inner peace, even when things around us might be chaotic.
Exactly. And, the material you shared takes this concept even further. It's not just about how we interact with others, but also about how we relate to our own thoughts and feelings.
Well, that's interesting. So even that harsh inner critic we all have, we don't necessarily need to take those thoughts so personally either.
Right. Those negative thoughts aren't always accurate reflections of who we truly are.
That makes me think of the concept of the mitote that your source talks about. Can you explain that a little bit?
The mitote is this idea that our minds are like this bustling marketplace filled with all these different voices, beliefs, and desires, often conflicting with each other. It helps explain why we sometimes feel so conflicted and unsure of ourselves.
So by not taking these internal voices personally, we can actually start to quiet all that noise and find more clarity.
Exactly. It's like we could step back from all that internal drama and start to see those negative self-judgments for what they really are, just echoes of those old ingrained agreements, not necessarily reflections of our true selves.
And zooming out a bit, your source also talks about this idea of dishonesty and how it often stems from people essentially lying to themselves out of fear.
Right. They suggest that a lot of the dishonesty we encounter actually comes from people who are trying to protect their own image, often because they're afraid of appearing imperfect or flawed.
So it's not really about us.
Exactly. Their behavior is more about their own internal struggles than any judgment on you.
And the material also talks about how it can actually be a gift when someone who doesn't offer love and respect walks out of our lives. That can be a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
It can be, but the source presents it as a way to prevent deeper, long-term suffering. It might hurt in the moment, but ultimately it frees you up to create space for healthier and more fulfilling relationships.
It seems like this agreement, don't take anything personally, is a real key to breaking free from those negative patterns that can cause so much suffering.
Absolutely. When you stop internalizing everything, you stop feeding those old agreements that keep us stuck in all that emotional turmoil.
So to bring it all home for everyone listening, the ability to not take things personally, as we've seen in the material you brought today, is a truly powerful tool. It can help us navigate all the complexities of human interaction and find greater peace within ourselves. It's about recognizing that what others say and do often reflects their own internal world and doesn't necessarily define who we are.
And remember, as your sources emphasize, the benefits are immense. By embracing this mindset, you can experience greater emotional freedom, reduce conflict in your relationships, and cultivate a deeper sense of trust in yourself.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder as you go about your day. Think about all the little moments where you might be taking things personally without even realizing it. What could shift for you if you started to intentionally detach from those interpretations? And remember, this isn't about ignoring feedback altogether, but about being able to discern what genuinely reflects on you and what's simply part of the other person's experience. Thanks for joining us today on The Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.